The reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated.
It's just not going to be saved by the prince.
It's a timeless concept, and I think that's why it continues to mean so much to people.
After 2 years of watching the online circus surrounding this movie, Snow White is finally here. I went in blind, completely unaware that it was a musical. Rookie mistake. The moment the first song started, I turned to my date and whispered, "What have we done?" She responded, "Sir, if you talk to me again, I'm calling security." Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Snow White herself. Does she resemble the original fairy tale description? You know, skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony? Not exactly. Snow White is supposed to be delicate, with a spirit so pure that all creatures are drawn to her. Instead, we have Rachel Zegler. That presents a bit of a problem with the name, but don't worry, Disney fixed it. Now she's called Snow White because she was born during a snowstorm. Using that logic, if Australians followed the same naming system, my brother would be called Red Hot Scorcher and my sister Heavy Flash Flooding. Now onto the film's biggest surprises. Remember those hipster cafe-dwelling dwarves that leaked 2 years ago? Yep, they're still here, except now they're called bandits. They don't really contribute much to the story, and their introduction feels completely unnecessary. It's as if 2 different movie edits were forcefully stitched together in the hopes of creating one cohesive film. You Can Tell Something was reworked because only one of these bandits gets any real character development, suggesting he was originally meant to be a major player before the reshoots. Speaking of which, is this the movie Disney always intended, or is it the rushed, damage control version cobbled together after the internet collectively lost its mind over Rachel Zegler's comments? I'd bet it's a little of both. It also seems that the male lead actually gets to save Snow White more than once. A shocking development, considering Disney's recent trend. And then, of course, there are the CGI dwarves, because thanks to Peter Dinklage's complaints, Hollywood is now terrified of portraying them any other way. Peter Dinklage made a clever move by pushing for CGI dwarves. He's making sure no other little actors steal his spot as Hollywood's go-to small-statured star. Strategic thinking, Peter. Now, credit where it's due. The film does manage to capture some of that old-school Disney magic. The opening credits and the enchanted forest scenes are beautifully done, evoking the classic fairy tale charm. The dreamy visuals of deer, rabbits, squirrels, and bluebirds bring back that vintage Disney feel. Exactly the kind of thing a young audience would be mesmerized by. The scene where Snow White escapes into the dark forest also nails that eerie, almost horror-like atmosphere from the original animation. People forget that those early Disney films had some genuinely scary moments. It wasn't all just princesses and cute woodland creatures. The set design and creature effects do a solid job of recreating that nostalgic Disney look. And thankfully, they didn't go for the dull, washed-out color palette that's plagued so many recent live-action adaptations. Some people have complained that parts of the film look too much like a stage set, but honestly, that just adds to the classic charm, kind of like The Wizard of Oz. However, the inconsistency becomes jarring when scenes shift between stylized studio sets and natural forest locations. Instead of blending seamlessly like in Legend, which created a single, immersive fantasy world, Snow White feels more like a chaotic fever dream where you're not quite sure what's real and what's not. Now, let's talk about the biggest issue, Rachel Zegler. From the start, she was a questionable choice for this role. And after her disastrous publicity run, it's likely even Disney regrets their decision. It's not just about the fact that she doesn't match the traditional skin as white as snow, hair as black as ebony description. Her singing ability is solid. The real problem? She lacks the warmth and kindness that defines Snow White's character. Snow White is supposed to radiate gentleness and sincerity, traits that Rachel struggles to embody. Snow White is supposed to radiate an almost angelic kindness, so pure and sincere that people and animals are instinctively drawn to her. But with Rachel Zegler in the role, that charm is nowhere to be found. She can't even soften her ever-present smug expression long enough to sell the character's innocence. Every smile she gives feels like a thinly veiled mask over a condescending monologue. It's as if she graduated from the Kristen Stewart School of Acting, where the only requirement is over-exaggerating facial expressions at every opportunity. Sure, she can sing, but embodying the essence of Snow White? That's a different story. There are moments in the film where it seems like Rachel is about to slip into her signature. I don't need a man's stance before the director swoops in and forces the film back onto its more romantic track. But if anything is going to make Rachel look like a top-tier actress, it's Gal Gadot as the evil queen. Let's be honest, Gal Gadot may be stunning, but her acting skills are another story. She doesn't just struggle with delivering lines, she can't even stand still convincingly on screen. One of her big musical numbers is meant to shift from playful to seductive to menacing, but she never manages to land on a single convincing emotion. Instead, you're just sitting there, waiting for something, anything, to click. But it never does. Even when she magically transforms into the old hag, her voice still sounds exactly the same. This role needed someone with the kind of presence that could steal a scene. But with Gadot, unless she's in a bikini, she's not stealing anything. Honestly, watching her performance makes you wish studios still had the guts to do a back two. The future and fire an actor mid-production. On a side note, one scene that genuinely made me laugh was when Snow White, in all her kindness, helps her soon-to-be hero escape from the evil queen's grasp. Instead of offering him something meaningful, she hands him a half-eaten bread roll. This, after she was just standing in front of a banquet table overflowing with exotic dishes. That wasn't a scripted moment of generosity. That was just Rachel, Zegler's true personality shining through. Jonathan, played by Andrew Burnap, delivered a solid performance, though he often felt like a weaker version of Flynn Rider, the charming rogue from Disney's 2010 animated hit Tangled. Interestingly, Flynn Rider was created by a group of female Disney staffers who handpicked the most attractive qualities in a man. Basically, a hot man focus group. 2010. Back when beauty was actually appreciated and men and women were still allowed to find each other attractive. In today's world, where we're supposed to celebrate mediocrity, that kind of thinking is practically outlawed. Speaking of Tangled, now that was a brilliant modern take on a classic fairy tale. Beautiful animation, a compelling story, and an evil stepmother so cunning and captivating, she would have devoured Gal Gadot's performance whole. Surprisingly, in Snow White, our male lead actually gets to play the hero, rescuing Snow White not once but twice. The film even dares to include a true love's kiss, though, to be fair, it wasn't exactly a heart-stopping moment of passion. Their love story felt a bit forced, but hey, at least it was something, and something is still better than whatever the original version of this movie was going to be. Now, let's talk about the magic mirror, a key part of the original Snow White story. Traditionally, the mirror represents an ultimate truth. And the evil queen is so consumed by her own vanity that she constantly seeks its reassurance that she's the fairest of them all. Honestly, she was ahead of her time, basically the medieval version of a TikTok influencer trapped by her own narcissism. But of course, this version of the story couldn't keep that dynamic for three very obvious reasons. In no universe would Rachel Zegler be considered more beautiful than Gal Gadot. In no universe would Gal Gadot be considered less beautiful than Rachel Zegler. It's a universally accepted fact that Gal Gadot is objectively more attractive than Rachel Zegler. To work around this inconvenient truth, the film redefines the concept of beauty. Now, the mirror judges not physical appearance, but inner beauty. But wait, if that's the case, then how did the evil queen ever hold the title of fairest of them all in the first place? Her name literally has evil in it. If she's somehow the most beautiful soul in the entire kingdom, what does that say about the rest of the villagers? Are they all even worse than her? The logic here is as flimsy as the film itself. The so-called progressive geniuses